23 with continuing Decision 2022 coverage. And this is the time that we can really dig into the impact that this election will have on all of us. I'm joined this morning by University of Akron professor Cherie, who has done extensive research into partisan polarization, which we've seen, co-authored the textbook, Why Don't Women Rule the World? So thank you so much for joining us early this morning.
Absolutely.
There was a lot of issues on the ballot. I want to get to some of those issues and also some of those candidates. So let's start out by talking about this balance of power, because we are still waiting to figure this out. Republicans, as we know, won the House, the Senate too close to call this morning. And before we dig into the question here, it might be some time before we know where the Senate goes, because as Georgia's Secretary of State announced, there will be a runoff election, is what they're expecting, between Senator Raphael Warnock and Republican challenger Herschel Walker. So tell us what we can expect in a runoff race, because it could come down to this.
It could. As I was, before I came in, there were still 4 Senate races that weren't called, and Georgia is one of them. And Georgia has a rule that if neither candidate wins 50% of the vote, they have a runoff. And it's an anachronism from, Jim Crow era. It's still on the books in Georgia. It was intended initially to protect white candidates who were splitting the vote in Georgia, but it's still on the books. And so they'll have a runoff election with the 2 top vote getters, which will be Walker and Warnock, and we will not know who wins that race, and that might be the race that flips the Senate. Right. It could come down to that.
Right, and they're saying that race, the runoff, would be December, so we could be in weeks of sort of
we could be in waiting mode for quite some time if it comes down to Georgia, in the same way that we saw recently.
And it was